3, 2, 1.
What's up, guys? We're here with Zach at the Eden Center, and we're talking about abuse. So, Zach, what is abuse?
What is it? I would say that's the intentional act of using or controlling another person. It could be physical, could be through language, could be any sort of action that's intentionally meant to manipulate them or to degrade them in some way.
So you think that intentionality is an aspect of it?
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible to unintentionally abuse someone?
I would say it has to be a build-up, right? Because over time you could become desensitized to the actions that you do, and so you could be like almost unthinkingly using other people, right? So in a culture, right, there could be like rape culture or something like that, and so over time you're desensitized, and so you just automatically do something that would be abusive. Yeah.
But do you think that would still qualify as abuse?
I think it could, because you have some role in making yourself the type of person that would do those things eventually. It's just like muscle memory, right? Where like a musician or something, they build up that sort of characteristic and then it becomes spontaneous. And so abuse maybe could be spontaneous after a while, right?
Yeah, like your just knee-jerk reaction to a different situation. Right?
You just become a controlling type of person.
As a result of like external influences.
Yeah.
Would you agree or disagree with the statement that solitary confinement is a form of abuse?
I would say that no, it's not a type of abuse, right? It could be useful for a time, like we quarantine certain types of people, right? If they have a communicable disease. And so you could explain to that person that it's not because of certain things. We're doing it in a way that cares for their agency, but we just need to seclude them for a while. And so there are proper ways of doing it, right?
So I would say an example of as a form of punishment or being imposed upon someone against their will. Would that be a form of abuse? So if I were to lock someone in a room.
Well, it does seem to fit my previous definition of like a controlling behavior, because you're limiting movement, right?
Yeah, okay.
And so I would say under my definition, I would either have to revise it or I'd have to say it is abusive. Yeah.
Well put. Okay. Do you think, or would you say that the concept of abuse is limited to human beings?
No, I mean like some people are religious, right? They could believe in like supernatural beings, so those could be abusive. And also like some animals, right? Non-human animals can control others in some way, like they have vicious behavior, right? But I think normally we would take it just to be human. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So how would the term animal abuse exist? Or is that a separate issue?
Oh, like you could, either humans could abuse animals, or like if you think that animals could act in a moral way, like there's good things for animals and bad things for them, like flourishing, right? They could attack another animal and so control it. But I think that like an unexplored topic right there, yeah.
Really? Unexplored topic. So I don't think, would you agree or disagree with the fact that animals have moral agency?
I can't really get inside their psychology, so I wouldn't know there, but I'd posit that sure, yeah, they could.
They could potentially.
Yeah.
With us humans being animals, that then creates the potentiality for other animals.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just because you can't tell somebody's thoughts, right? An animal or another human. It's not that we would preclude them from having agency, because I can't get inside your thoughts, but I still say, there's a moral person right there. So the same thing with animals. They might have rights and responsibilities and stuff like that too.
So what do you base that assumption on?
Just like with other people, I look at their facial movements, their actions, some of their responses. They don't like certain things, so maybe I take it that they think it's bad. The same way with animals, they recoil from certain things, they seem angry or they seem friendly after a while, so I just attribute a personality to them.
Okay.
And so it looks like they're thinking about what they're doing, right?
Interesting. So we spoke briefly before we started this interview, and I would assume from what you said that you're quite a stark atheist.
I'm actually a religious skeptic. I don't believe or disbelieve in God. I'm just continuing the search for the idea. Yeah.
Philosophy. So how do you, as someone who doesn't disbelieve or believe in God, define your morals?
For me, I would just say, like, I posit the idea of human flourishing and human goods. And so I take it that there's this general idea of what's good for persons. And
like humanity as a whole?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then individual people, you have your projects, I have mine. And so it's good to encourage people to develop their projects. Also, there are moral sentiments like empathy, like care. And I think it's good just to be a caring person. So I take it as basic, as fundamental, like one of those foundational things. that it's good to empathize with other people. So that's where I get my morality. It's not from God, it's not from reason, but it's from moral sentiments, like good thoughts, good feelings. Yeah.
Okay. Would you agree that human beings have something of an ingrained or, I guess, evolutionary sense of right and wrong?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it seems like we've grown up in communities where that's a very useful concept, and so we keep going with it. Yeah, like we build systems of rights and stuff like that. Yeah.
Do you think that, so for example, if I were to, say, be violent towards a dog,
Yeah.
society as a whole would react to that as saying that that is a negative thing, right?
I think pretty much everybody would agree. Yeah.
Agree?
Yeah.
Do you think there's any, I guess, validity or substance or value to the fact that it seems to be an almost innate human reaction to empathize towards animals, or feel, like you would feel a negative almost twinge if you were to see someone do that to someone?
Yeah, I think it's almost like we're designed that way, or maybe society has built us up that way that we're, but sometimes it almost seems, innate, because it doesn't serve any purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine like you have that moral emotion, but you can't really act on it. I don't know, you're tied down or something like that. It still seems like we would want to care for other things that can't help us, and also that even if we couldn't help them, we still want to. We still have that moral sense. So, there's something innate there,
That's interesting. So having acknowledged that human beings have this natural sort of empathy that extends beyond human beings, do you think it makes logical sense for us to be committing acts or paying other human beings to be committing acts that we ourselves would define as animal abuse or amoral? Immoral.
Oh, immoral, yeah. I think, there it automatically implicates us in their actions, unless we could fundamentally distance ourselves in some way. But you could, pay a hitman to kill somebody else, and, even if you weren't murdering that person, you're still complicit in the action.
Mm-hmm.
So the same thing here, with animals, if we're paying somebody to hurt the animal, we are paying for also the pain, the injustice, the immorality, probably. Yeah.
How do you feel about that concept?
Well, I just ate a burger today, so I'm fundamentally inconsistent lifestyle.
How do you feel acknowledging that you're living a fundamentally inconsistent lifestyle? How do you feel about that?
It's like watching a comedy play out, but I'm the main actor. It's unfortunate. It's sad.
You would agree that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So if say you were given resources, or let's get beyond that, do you yourself feel as though you have some sort of an obligation to yourself to align your actions with your beliefs or your ethos?
I don't believe in obligations, but I would just use a different word, that flourishing concept. So it would be good if I was consistent.
Okay.
Yeah, and
well put.
So it's like a psychology thing where you're alienated from yourself when you're not living with what you specifically just stated, like I did a few minutes ago with my own moral practice.
Yeah.
So it's definitely wrong.
Interesting. Have you ever thought about or considered that aspect of your life or your actions before?
Not really. I have quite a few friends that are vegan or vegetarian, and I just remember what I said before about a society where it becomes almost second nature, or it's like a knee-jerk reaction, as you were saying.
Yeah.
That's how I've developed, right? And so we just eat meat or something like that. So we don't really see the factory farms, anything like that. I remember one time in sociology, I was watching a video on the production of food, and then right after that I go to the cafeteria and have chicken, and I'm I know exactly where it comes from now. But there is the concept in philosophy is weakness of will. You know what you're supposed to do, but you just don't do it. And you're isn't this odd that I'm the person doing exactly what I said is wrong, right?
Yeah, that's fascinating. Wow, okay. So do you think that how do I word this? I've lost my train of thought, I apologize. Oh, so as a philosopher, does that concept of logical inconsistency or disconnection, do you think there's a vested interest by the companies who seek to profit from these sort of industries, seek to gain from having this ingrained, so the knee-jerk reaction, or the habit, or what you're saying as far as that? Do you think that is potentially a product of or an intentional creation or addition to our societal norms being pushed by some sort of outside group? Maybe not outside group, but like, do you think that it might be within their agenda?
I mean, it could be part of advertising if you normalize an idea, right? Just like, so you could watch something about like a certain type of thing, chicken or something like that. It seems like everybody, you get the family together, it's just a normal thing that everybody does. But if you remove that from advertising, everybody eats salads, and you watch TV shows, nobody ate meats, then it would become abnormal to do that, right? So it's like they create a frame of reference for us, and it normalizes it, and then we just participate in those actions because it's so easy. All we have are all those examples for us right there. So it's advertising, but it's also the TV shows we watch, the friend groups we have. So many outside influences.
Do you believe that, say, a large portion of our population, if they were made to or forced to watch like the actions involved in producing their food every time they consumed it, would continue those habits?
That's a difficult one for me, because notice I was just mentioning the documentary I watched, right?
Yeah.
And so I knew all of the moral reasons for it. I knew the whole process. If there was empathy in me, it should have activated at that moment.
Fair enough.
And then right after, I go and eat chicken. Yeah. Right after that, I go to like the same buffet, the same cafeteria. And so if we did that, it might be like a long process. So it'd have to be like a long event of ingraining people, right?
Fair.
Because I've had so many years where chicken is normal, where like buying a hamburger is fine, right?
Yeah, of course.
But
okay, with you saying you're also very interested in ethics, there's one more question I want to ask you, which I really love to think about and toy with. Do you believe that there is an ethical way to kill a being who doesn't want to die?
I wouldn't. There is an ethical way of letting them die. So if somebody is like fundamentally an abusive person, you can ask them to exile from a society, and you could just say, do you want to leave? They could say no, and they could say, here's the agreement you made when entering a society. But you can't do that with animals and ask their permission to leave.
Okay.
So you could just give them a separate environment and just say, like, eventually the resources will run out.
Yeah.
The same thing with a human. You could just say, you're constantly attacking people. That's not the greatest thing. We're going to give you a separate island or something, and just live there, right?
So that's a great answer, but I'm talking specifically in terms of, and I should have defined this better, like directly murdering or taking the life of another human, another animal, if they have a vested interest in remaining alive. Is there an ethical way to go about that in any scenario?
Maybe like self-defense. If they're attacking you and the only option is them like unjustly killing you, and then you defensively killing them. But even then, like, it would be primarily a reaction in the moment. It wouldn't be you methodically thinking it out. You'd be just like striking back. So
fair.
More of a knee-jerk thing than
so outside of self-defense, you would say there isn't a moral or ethical way to go about it?
Not that I can think of. I'd have to like spend more time over it. Yeah.
Thinking about it?
Yeah.
One last thing I want to ask you, because you were talking about how you would assume that like I'm a moral person by my facial expressions. Would you afford animals the assumption that they themselves have a will to live?
Oh, definitely, yeah, because they recoil, like almost anything I can see or imagine recoiling from pain, stuff like that. They seem to enjoy eating and like going about their business, so I would imagine that they enjoy that more than they do getting stabbed,
Yeah.